Hello everyone, and welcome to the first video on the Breezy Weather YouTube channel. My name is Patrick, and on today's first video for the channel, we're going to be giving you a severe weather update. I'm going to be briefing you on a 2-day severe weather event that is expected to impact portions of the southern United States as a severe weather system moves into the region, specifically going to be impacting portions of Texas into portions of the Arklatex as well as lower Mississippi Valley and the central Gulf Coast states going towards the end of this work week, particularly on Wednesday and Thursday. Analyzing the two particular severe weather risks in general, we do have a marginal risk for tomorrow, Wednesday, January 29th, across portions of west central into north central Texas. This includes areas like Wichita Falls, Dallas, Waco, Austin, as well as Abilene. There is an all hazards threat with this, as well as with a small 2% tornado risk, basically situated right along the northern half or the northern extent of the Austin San Antonio exurbia, including Austin itself, as well as areas south and southwest of the city of Waco. There is also a 5% wind risk, which extends from uh, fairly close to the United States-Mexico border, areas just west of downtown San Antonio up through the Austin Metro, as well as up the I-35 corridor into Waco and Dallas, with a 5% hail risk, which does extend across the entirety of the categorical marginal risk. That is a marginal risk for mainly the late evening and overnight time frame, as storms are not expected to fire until around the 10 to 11 p.m. local time frame, and then push east as a large but relatively skinny line of strong to severe thunderstorms develops and brings the potential for an all-hazards threat further east into central eastern Texas as well as into portions of the lower Mississippi Valley on Thursday, the day after tomorrow, with a slight risk, which is our main biggest concern, at least at the moment right now, with a 2 out of 5 risk. This is a level 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. And this includes southeastern Texas, much of northern central and western Louisiana, or really much a large chunk of the state of Louisiana, including Shreveport, or areas just south and east of Shreveport, Alexandria, Fort Polk, Lake Charles, and vicinity. This also includes areas like Tallulah, Louisiana, as well as areas right along the confluence of the Mississippi River in extreme southwest Mississippi, with a broader margin risk extending around that. A 15% severe weather risk is in place, which basically means that there's a 15% chance of severe weather within 25 miles of any given point inside this yellow shaded area. So a relatively active 2 days of severe weather is potentially on the table. We do have a few concerns regarding this event that may play into basically making this event not a really robust event. And I'm going to go and break down some of my concerns here with this particular event in this in-depth meteorological breakdown for this first video on the channel. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at several different key features and some model data here in this particular video. We're going to start with 12Z 6 a.m. Central Standard Time tomorrow on Wednesday. Notice that we do have some weak, more elevated showers and cumulus as they do continue to increase throughout the day. There'll be some spotty showers, maybe an isolated rumble or thunder or two, especially across central Texas. But this is mainly all going to be elevated showers, potentially some steadier showers in the mix. And as you can see, as we go towards the evening time frame, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, we really do not see more significant convective development until the evening time frame here, as we're getting towards 11 p.m. to 12 p.m. Midnight local time here in Texas. This is when we expect the more bulk of the severe convection to develop, as we do have, if we take a look here at our 500 millibar analysis, we do have a relatively potent level low progressing into the region in association with strong, relatively intense flow rounding the base. This is a pretty amped shortwave trough that is going to eject into the southern plains and impinge upon portions of Texas going into the evening time frame on Wednesday. This shortwave trough impinging into the warm sector, will bring plenty of mid to upper level defluence, which is where you see the wind barbs spreading out in direct correlation with height, which will bring enough to lift for storms to develop, especially when we have the more stronger flow from the trough arrive into the region. We can also notice here that moisture is already in place, although fairly modest. The moisture extent, or at least the moisture content, does get a little bit more primed throughout much of the day here across Texas as moisture continues to plume north, or basically from the Gulf of Mexico here and advances to the northwest and north and pulls into Texas. And as you can see, right here, we do have a relatively broad plume of mid to upper 50s dew points, which is fairly modest, but is definitely sufficient in a region like this. And as you can see, moisture will continue to remain in place throughout much of the evening time frame, and as you can kind of see right here, delineated by the drier dew points compared to the higher dew points here, or the more drier air mass left behind. You can kind of see here right along this region is the cold front, as well as the trough arriving, which does eventually fire up our storms, as you could see, or as you saw earlier with the HRRR. We'll go right around here, right around the 0506 time frame, which is around 11 to 12 a.m., not p.m., apologize about that earlier, but 11 to 12 a.m. Local time frame is when we do expect, or at least when I expect, the bulk of severe convection, at least for what is anticipated to develop. And as you can see here, as we do progress a little bit further, you can see that convection will continue to develop overnight. Some isolated pockets of large hail cannot be ruled out, especially earlier on when the convection is a little bit more isolated and still messy, but then eventually all of this convection will congeal into a pretty large, slightly disorganized, or a little bit poorly organized, more so skinny line of strong to severe thunderstorms, and will continue to push east and may weaken slightly in terms of overall intensity, given the fact that if we take a look here at our CAPE, which is a measure of the potential energy that we have for thunderstorms to develop, we really do not have a lot of instability in place for this event, which is going to be a big concern, especially with getting more robust convection. We could take a look here. I'll pull a sounding here right around 6 p.m. Local time here in Texas. We'll take it right out ahead of the trough here across central Texas and take a look at what we're dealing with. As you can see, we really don't have a lot of instability. There is a little bit of MU cape, most unstable cape, about maybe 545, maybe 540. But we do have a fairly decent wind profile here, very strong deep layer shear on the order of 90 knots in some spots, which is definitely sufficient for elevated convection. A little bit of low-level curvature in the hodograph here with surface-based or surface to 1 kilometer storm relativity of right around 200 meters per second squared. However, we don't really have a lot of that instability. Plus, if you look at this particular profile here, you can see that we do have a fairly deep moisture content here that does go above 1 kilometer, 58 over 57, although there is this little bit of a stable layer where you can see the red line and the green line being the dew point, and the red line on this particular skew T log P diagram being the environmental temperature. These are overlapping a little bit, which means there is a little bit of stability. You can see there's barely any low-level instability, so there is a decent amount of stability in the low levels, and typically your lowest levels towards the surface need to be buoyant for storm parcels, or basically the air that is needed to be lifted, or the air parts, basically the little concentrations of air that need to be lifted in order to rise, and we need instability for that to happen. However, we do have strong wind shear from the trough, which is overspreading the warm sector. We do have some fairly decent moisture in place at this time. Not necessarily the most um, primed moisture, but we do have sufficient moisture coupled with some very strong wind shear. And this is looking into Thursday as well. We can see that the trough has progressed well into central Texas. Stronger flow is beginning to continuing to round the base. And as this trough ejects into the southern and central plains, including areas like Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas, flow does seem to get a little bit stronger as well. And as you can see here as well, we do have this very long line, thin line of strong to severe thunderstorms. And we can take a sounding out ahead of this particular line. We really don't have necessarily favorable thermodynamic profile, but we do have wind shear and we do have a fairly sufficient amount of moisture. So if any storm were able to root through or survive the meager thermodynamics and can get more established, they have the potential to produce all modes of severe weather and all hazards of severe weather, including damaging wind gusts, large hail, as well as tornadoes. Mainly going to be a damaging wind threat and perhaps an isolated spin up tornado threat, not necessarily looking at a hail threat, given that this is going to be evolving into a messier line. And as we can see throughout the day, it will continue to progress eastward into portions of eastern Texas and western Louisiana. We can actually take a sounding as well here to see what the environment has improved. The environment does improve slightly on Thursday, which is why we're looking at Thursday being the more concerning of the two, although both of these are going to have very limiting factors, such as the very weak instability with our Cape. Another thing we can look at as well, I mean, Cape does there will be a little bit more of substantiated surface heating if we go down to our temperatures. Temperatures are expected to get into the upper 60s and low 70s across this region, and you can definitely see the frontal progression right here. 70s temperatures with this with this broad plume of 60s dew points is definitely enough for some decent surface heating, which is why we do have a little bit of cape to work with. We do have that very strong wind shear and the modest cape, which will definitely yield a potential for some spin up tornadoes within the line. Especially if you were within eastern Texas and western central Louisiana going into the slight risk region, you want to mainly keep an eye out for those spin up tornadoes. Spin up tornadoes are still dangerous, even though they can occur briefly and spin right back up and spin right back down. They can still be very dangerous compared to non linear associated tornadoes. So you definitely want to be um, cautious of the weather across this region for Thursday. However, thankfully, there are going to be some limiting factors with this particular event, especially when you take a look at your lowest level temperatures. This is basically a resolution of the temperatures that are aloft or right about above 1 kilometer in the atmosphere. These temperatures are within the 11 to 12 degrees Celsius range, or at least what's being modeled on the HRRR. These warmer, mid to lower level temperatures is not favorable for the development of more robust instability. You would want this more colder air to be in line with your uh, more primed forcing, and we do kind of see that this cold air is really displaced. The low is really displaced from the best forcing, especially coupled with this cold air, which is really what's going to be the key driving factor here for creating instability in this case, also with your stronger surface heating and better dynamics. So, the gist of the story is we do have a relatively potent jet stream that is expected to eject into this region. Despite some limited instability, the strong wind shear, also coupled with some fairly adequate moisture, will result in the formation of a more messier mode at first, but then we will but then as convection continues to improve in organization as well as pick up in terms of coverage, we can see here that this will turn from a more messier, isolated mode to a more linear, highly forced, skinny sort of squall given the very limited instability. So we aren't really going to have a lot of robust updrafts in this particular line, but any isolated or embedded or semi-isolated or embedded element within this weaker squall line does have the potential to produce a few spin-up tornadoes given the nature of the improving wind shear, the strengthening wind shear as the trough ejects further into the southern plains as well as Arklatex and lower Mississippi River Valley vicinity throughout the day. We can also look at some current conditions right now across the country. We'll take a look at our 500 millibar map. You can see our key area or key interest of notice here. This is our shortwave trough. association with our upper level low that is cut off from the main flow of jet stream, or the main jet stream right here. Very broad meridional to zonal flow across this particular area of the northern continental United States, but across much of the or the rest of the country, we do have fairly zonal or straight westerly flow. Looks like west northwesterly to westerly flow, and also we have this trough and the main jet stream up here. So these are the key features on our 500 millibar map. And we can also take a look at some upper level water vapor imagery. You can also see that trough as well as a lot of cirrus across the southern U.S. right now, central plains. You can see definitely some cirrus advection as noted by the upper level water vapor imagery. And obviously you can see our main feature, this trough, which is ejecting into the region, or at least continuing to develop and will eventually eject into the Texas and New Mexico vicinity as into the southern plains by Wednesday evening and into Thursday on the 30th. Now, before we go ahead and wrap up this video, given the fact that these threats are mainly going to be into the overnight to the morning and afternoon time frame on Thursday from Wednesday night, we should go ahead and go over some severe weather safety tips. A little graphic here by NWS Gaylord, which really applies to all severe weather events. So a watch is the potential exists for severe thunderstorm or tornado development. A warning means that severe weather is imminent or occurring based on radar or relayed severe weather reports. If a severe thunderstorm warning is issued, you want to make sure that you take shelter in a substantiated structure and a safe building. You want to make sure that you get out of mobile homes that can blow over in high winds. Make sure when thunder roars to go indoors. Do not take a bath, shower, or use plumbing. Also, make sure to know where your safest place is in the event of a tornado warning. You want to make sure that you stay away from windows. Go to a basement or an interior room on the lowest floor. You want to make sure that you abandon cars and mobile homes. And if you are outdoors, make sure to seek sturdy shelter. And that is going to go ahead and wrap it up for this first video on the channel. Just to give a brief summary of all of the meteorological jargon that I did go over. We are going to have the formation of thunderstorms, some severe across this particular region. Given the limited instability or the energy for thunderstorms to develop across this region, convective development, thunderstorm development across this region is a little bit uncertain, but if any storm does develop across this marginal risk corridor, especially as we go into the overnight time frame, there is the potential for um, all hazards of severe weather, including isolated large hail initially, and then eventually a threat for damaging winds and perhaps an isolated spin-up tornado or two, with the main concern being for Thursday, January 30th, as our skinny line of strong to severe thunderstorms continues to develop and pushes east with a continued threat of damaging winds and a few tornadoes. So that is going to do it again for this video, for the first video on the Breezy Weather YouTube channel. I am hopefully looking to improve the quality and style of my videos in the future. So if you have any feedback as well as questions, comments, or concerns with what you watched, please go ahead and drop it into the comment section down below. And before I wrap it up here officially, I would like to say thank you so much for supporting the Breezy Weather YouTube channel. I'll be continuing to upload as well as post consistently daily or perhaps even daily as we continue to run this channel and for the future. So yeah, definitely go ahead and support the channel. You can subscribe by hitting the subscribe button down below. Turn on notifications to also get an update of when I post. You can also follow me on my Twitter handle to get updates as well of when I do post on this channel. It'll be linked in the description as well as in the bio of this channel down below as well across my platform here on YouTube, or channel platform here on YouTube. And yeah, definitely continue to support the channel. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next update. But until then, this has been a severe weather update from me, Patrick, for Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. Until then, see you in the next video. Thank you. Have a good one.